That must be him.
That's him. Ding dong.
Let me go back to Zoom. Yes, that's him. So I'm gonna go ahead and let him in.
All right, I'm gonna go now.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Great, great. How you doing?
Good, good. My name is Myiesha, with
Hey, Myiesha.
Media with Myiesha. It's so nice to meet you and speak with you today.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me and to do this with me.
My pleasure.
Let's get started.
Let's go.
All right. Welcome back to Media with Myiesha, everybody. Today's conversation is special. I am sitting down with someone whose storytelling has quietly shaped so many of our cultural moments, whether we realized it or not. Rob Edwards is a 30-year Hollywood veteran whose writing spans generations, from Disney's Academy Award nominated The Princess and the Frog and Treasure Planet to be the first writer on Marvel's Captain America Brave New World, to television classics like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, A Different World, and In Living Color. His work has lived in our homes, in our laughter, and in our imaginations. But what I love most about this chapter of his journey is that he's turned his pen towards legacy. In 2025, Rob released his debut graphic novel, Defiant, the story of Robert Smalls, published through Legion M. It quickly became a bestseller and is now nominated for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work, graphic novel. And this is not fiction. This is a true story of Robert Smalls, born enslaved in South Carolina, who in 1862 commandeered a Confederate ship, sailed himself and his family to freedom, and later became a U.S. congressman and advocate for Black civil rights. From shaping animated heroes to reclaiming a real life one, Rob's career reflects something deeper: courage, imagination, and intention. So today, we're not just talking about a nomination, we're talking about storytelling as power, about who's remembered, and about what it means to bring history to life in a way that inspires the next generation. Rob, welcome. I am so honored to have you here.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you. And what a great introduction. I hope I live up to it. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you will. Rob, you've had a 30-year career in Hollywood, from Disney to Marvel, Fresh Prince, cultural staples that shaped so many of us. But beyond the credits and the accolades, when someone meets you for the first time, how do you describe yourself?
Oh man. Uh, I'm a dad and a writer.
I love it. I love
I'm a
it.
father first. I'm a father of black boys first and foremost. And even most of my writing comes from that. When I was writing Fresh Prince, it was I brought my kids to the set. When I was writing on the Living Color, my kids were a little older and they enjoyed that humor. And with both Treasure Planet and Princess and the Frog, I took great delight in when I did Treasure Planet. I took all the boys in my older son's class to the movie, to see it. Everybody enjoyed it, and they were like, "Hey, can we do this next week?" I'm like, "Absolutely!" So we went to the Crest Theater, and I just got a bunch of rows of tickets, and I was the best dad in the world. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. And it's so important, raising children, raising Black children. I'm a mother of a Black son as well. So I
There you
completely
go.
understand the
Yeah,
importance of that. What's something people assume about your journey that isn't actually true?
that it was easy. Like, oh yeah, well you just fell out of bed and tripped on a banana peel, and then you wrote all these TV shows and movies. None of them are easy. they're all hard gigs to get and then hard gigs to do. You know, when I was doing Princess and the Frog, I was very aware of what it would be. I didn't think it would be a ride at Disneyland. That's for sure. But I thought like this is
I
going
mean,
to be
isn't that
important.
cool?
And that is the most who do that, you know? At
Yeah.
what point do you say like, oh yeah, yeah, this is going to be right at Disneyland? There's no problem. You know, you just say, I know so many people who've been waiting for this movie or a movie like this for their
Hmm.
entire lives. You know, when they were kids, they grew up with Little Mermaid and, you know, Beauty and the Beast, and now they have kids and they want to show their kids a princess that looks like them.
Oh yeah.
And so we gave them a powerful one. You know, I mean, still people talk about Princess Tiana being the strongest princess ever. So
Yeah.
it's you know, I take pride in that. That was deliberate. Uh, I wanted to show us in our best light. You know, intelligent, uh, humane, with goals and visions. You know, her whole thing is about hard work, which is my thing. And you know, but still finding love and balance in your life. And so I'm very proud of the reactions I get, which are usually people walking up to me and saying, "I hear you wrote Princess and the Frog,"
Princess and the
and
Frog.
then bursting into
Oh,
tears when they meet me. Everybody like, hugs me. You know, this way of just you know, you create community and you just you know, I'm super proud of that I've been able to, you know, give that to people.
it's I mean, it's a powerful story, even though it's an animation and it's a,
Yeah,
you know, a fairy tale. We as people of color, Black people, we needed it. So
yeah.
it's so
There's nothing like it.
inspiring that you wrote it and that you get those experiences.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I love starting here because before we talk about the awards and the nominations, I think it's important that people understand the human behind the work. I mean, you're just a
Okay.
dad, you know, showing your sons, like, listen, like there are heroes everywhere. Let me write about them. Let me show
Yeah.
you guys. And so
Exactly.
the fact that they have those examples is amazing. I love it.
Thank
So many people have never heard the name Robert Smalls. I know I
you.
just
Hmm.
personally heard about Robert Smalls. I would say probably during COVID when everybody was home and kind of like diving into stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing that the life that he lived, it felt like something that was written for the screen. How did you discover him and what made you feel personally connected to telling his story?
Oh yeah. Well, it was interesting because I had couple. It was a perfect storm of things that had happened. One is a friend of mine, Dave Baxter, is working with Legion M. He calls me up and he says, "Hey, you know, somebody sent a meme about Robert Smalls and said, you know, of all the things that he's done and of all the movies that have been made, why hasn't anybody made a movie about Robert Smalls yet?"
Mm-hmm.
And I consider myself a pretty well-read guy. I, you know, one of his books everywhere. Uh, I thought I knew, and this is just me. I think I knew everything, right?
Right.
So you know, and as he's talking about this guy, I'm like, I start Googling, and I see like all the accomplishments and all the amazing things this guy has done. I had just finished I just finished working on a couple of projects. I just finished I was working on Captain America: Brave New World at the time. I had just finished working on a movie called Emperor, which was about an escaped slave,
Okay.
and then I had done King of Kings, which was of course the story of Jesus, also
Mm-hmm.
nominated for a bunch of stuff this year, and
Oh, congrats.
I did a lot of research on that. Basically, you know, once again, I consider myself pretty biblically. You know, I'm a reader at my church, and you know, just going through the gospels and reconciling the gospels to come up with a narrative of just what I think happened and what I think, you know, the story's about. And so when this thing came around, I was like, okay, good. I think I'm ready. I think there's a perfect time for me to take on a project like this. You know, there's no amount of research that I'm not willing to do. Fortunately, Dr. Myiesha at Harvard has been helping me, with a lot of the context, a lot of the history of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I've just been going through it. And the fun thing is, as I'm doing all this stuff, historians will tell the story that they can tell, which is these are the things that were in the newspapers. These are the things that are provable. A
Right.
writer looks at it and says, "Why did he do these things? And why at this time? And why was this so
Mm-hmm.
important to him?" And so I was asking questions that the historians weren't asking, and I was finding answers to myself just basically in what was happening in his life. And every so often, Michael Bulwer Moore, who's a great great grandson of Robert
Mm-hmm.
Smalls, I would ask him. He's also working on the project. He's a consultant, and I would call him and I said, "I think this is what was going on. Is this does this ring true to you?" And he
Yeah.
would say, "Well, let me ask my grandma." And he would say, "Oh my God, grandma loves you because she says we we don't tell anymore, but you got it right on the head." So that I love in this project. And I swear the spirit is kind of propelling this project as we go, because every question I ask has an amazing answer, because this guy just lived a
Amazing
fantastic
life.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. Is there a specific detail about his life that made you stop and see him not as a historical figure, but just as a fully realized character? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. Like when I read the
Well,
story and I did the research that I did, I was just telling my son the other day, like, because something came up about it, and before I think it was a couple weeks ago, because he was telling me about Black history at school, and I was asking
yeah.
him, what they're learning. Are they learning anything?
I
Because you know how these schools are. And I told him, I
always
said,
I always joke that Black history in school is kind of like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Beyonce.
Well, I've worked directly with my son's school for years, to like for in his school district. I've worked to help them shape better stories of what they're telling these kids. So
Yeah.
I wanted to know, like, who did they talk about this time? And he mentioned Malcolm X, but I was mentioning Robert Small's story to him because I was like, oh, I was like, have you heard about him? And so I was explaining the whole story to him. And I'm so glad I got the book, because and it's written like a comic book. So I was just like,
Yeah.
this is amazing, because he loves comic book style books. He loves these types of books. So I'm excited for him to read it. I think it's perfect for, this time.
Yeah.
So
And that's
it
deliberate too, because I
yeah,
once again, as a father, I was thinking, like, if I write, we needed IP. There were a bunch of histories of the events, mainly what's called the heist. When he had the planter, and
right,
to get back to what you were saying earlier, it wasn't just his family that he freed. He freed the families of all the other black crew and their
wow,
families. And they all made this decision that they were going to, that they were going to free themselves. They were going to, take the planter, surrender it to the Union Army. And if anything went wrong, they had to get past 5 military checkpoints, all the signals and all
crazy.
that stuff, in the middle of the night, disguised as the captain, so
How
that
scary is that?
hopefully, yeah.
Just
But
thinking
they
about, like,
lined
how scary is that?
absolutely, and they
Yeah.
lined the deck with gunpowder, because they thought if they were caught at any time, they were all going to get dragged through the streets, basically, like the Haitians,
Right.
after the Haitian Rebellion. That there was that so much of slavery, and keeping that amount of slaves enslaved, was removing hope,
Mhm.
from them, that if they ever tried, because you'd have Henry McKee, who owned Robert Smalls, had 900 slaves,
My
900
God.
slaves, and they were all about the price of a Maybach, and so an extremely rich man, the richest man in Beaufort,
Mhm.
900 of them. So if one of them had just said, "Boop," whatever, and you're
Yeah.
right. So you had to have that fear there. So they lined the deck, knowing that if anything went wrong, they'd blow up the whole ship. and themselves so that they wouldn't be made examples of. They wouldn't be
Mm,
tortured and all that. And he had to
wow.
convince, Robert Smalls had to convince all these people to do this thing.
I'm
So that was
sure.
one
Like
thing.
I, I can only imagine. I mean, you think about that time and you think about I think the stories that we all grew up with and that a lot of us heard, none of it was told from a perspective of slaves actually fighting and rebelling and
Right.
actually trying to seek their freedom and actually getting it. And so
Isn't
stories
that,
like
and isn't
this,
that, yeah, doesn't that just kill you? Because it's so much
yeah,
of it, and God bless historians. They are wonderful, and they do God's work. But a lot of times, our stories are filtered through non-black lenses,
right.
and it's usually from the point of view, whether it's 12 years a slave or whatever, emancipation. It's filtered through a white gaze.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted this to not be that in any way. I wanted this to be about liberation, about the joy of freedom, about the inspirational part of it. That a slave can do this thing with courage and intelligence, and then the other side where he started all these businesses and he ran for Congress and changed the world. He gave us public schools and he gave us
Yeah.
black soldiers. He
Yeah.
was the one who went to Lincoln and made the argument that black people should fight for the Union, turn the Civil War.
Yeah.
He himself was a huge hero because the amount of weaponry that was on the planter when they surrendered it to the Union was the biggest haul of the entire Civil War. The amount of weapons that were seized were used, of course, against the Confederacy, and helped turn that. And then, of course, 200 black applicants to were fought for the Union. Changed everything. And so that was the story I wanted to tell. Was the inspirational. I said very early on, no whips on backs.
Right.
I
We
I did not want to tell a whip on back story. In fact, there's a scene where he talks himself out of it whipping, using his intelligence, and because so many of them are just triggering, and
yeah.
you just don't want to. The story doesn't need to be told that way. It doesn't have, so don't tell it that way. Tell a story about that will inspire my kids. And then the second part of
Absolutely.
it, very deliberately, was what vessel, if I put it on my kid's bed and it was a book,
Mm-hmm.
would they read it? Probably not. I got smart kids, Ivy League kids, but they're not going to read a book about Robert Smalls without a lot of
Right.
coercion. But a comic book, boom,
A
they'd read it,
comic book
and
changes things.
yeah. And we released it in issues. We had 4 different issues, and
Okay.
we would release them every couple of months, knowing that we were going to combine them and make the graphic novel. But we released them and released them and released them, and people would read the first one and go, "When's the second one coming out? I have to, I need to know more." And then they get the second one, like,
Yeah.
"Okay, that's great. No, when's the third one coming out?" And just building that as you would like a Spider-Man comic or a Captain America, and
I love it.
and so that was the design was meet kids where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to force a tome or some dusty book on them. And then when you're telling the story, you'd asked earlier, what was it about him that kind of got me fired up? Is I started asking why. Why did he do it, and why did he do it on this night? And
Mm-hmm.
I just kept hunting around, and it was that he had just had a son. Robert Jr. was born a couple of months before the escape,
Okay.
and Kingman, his wife's owner, he was going to try to buy his freedom from Henry McKee for
Mm-hmm.
$100. And
Wow.
after 10 years, he was no closer. It was indentured servitude. He was no closer to buying himself after 10 years of trying to save $100. With McKee taking everything but $1, and he would live on that dollar and then pay McKee back $100 a quarter at a time.
Oh my
To try to buy
God.
his freedom. And Kingman said, "Okay, yeah, you can buy Hannah for $800. So he knew that he was never going to get much closer. It would be the end of his life before he'd be able to pay for
Before he would
himself,
get there, yeah.
before he'd be. And the one big reason he wanted to, buy his freedom was because he knew that his family would be sold off, anytime anybody had any kind of, a problem. And Kingman was not great with money. He went broke like 2 weeks after the war started. And, and so, and he had just had a son. Robert Jr. was born. And
Uh-huh.
he knew that if Kingman found out about Robert Jr., he would sell
Tell
Robert's
the
son,
child. Mm-hmm.
and to try to cover for his own, what I believe to be gambling losses. And so time was of the essence because the guy, was coming by and whatever, and he was going to find the kid. And so he said it has to happen now. And once I found, like, okay, well, kid's born. There's all this debt. There's this thing, and then there's the end being that Kingman. I was like, okay, it was obvious to me that he had to do this before Kingman discovered his son. And that was one thing where I felt like, yeah, he's doing this because he's a good dad. And that was like, okay, dad in 1860, dad in 2025. I get you, man. I get, there's no way in the world anybody's touching my kids. So
Yeah, I mean,
so that
truthfully,
was,
that's what drives us all.
I think, make the world a better place for our kids.
Yeah.
Anytime my kids do something better than me, I'm like, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Or you're like, they
They're
get
like,
it. My goodness, I did something good.
yeah, exactly. But when they beat me, my kids, when they, just even like playing basketball, right? I'd beat them and beat them and beat them. And then there was one day, I think my older son was 12, and he took me to school. He figured out that dad is old and has bad knees, and he could just,
He can
boom,
run circles around
and
you.
get. And once he figured that out, he had the biggest smile on his face. And he said, "Did you let me win?" I said, "I played my ass off." Like, there's no way. I I
I
I did
wasn't
not. I will
trying
never
to.
let. I will never let you. And I was more proud of him on that day than anything, because I'm like, okay, good. My That's what being a dad is. I want my kids to be. I want the legacy to be bigger than what I was. The same as me and my dad and his dad.
Yeah.
And so that I really, I started to get him, and then I started asking different questions about how he did the various things, like why public school was important. He was
Mm-hmm.
illiterate. He was illiterate, and he hired two tutors, a morning tutor and an evening tutor, because he was afraid he would burn one out. And he was so driven to learn how to read. He was well spoken because
Yeah.
he was Henry McKee's favorite slave. And so he just spoke like a rich white guy because he was always around rich white people, but he couldn't write or read anything to save his
Right.
life. And that was a big impediment to him. And so he said, okay, well, I need to correct that. And everybody needs to correct that. We need to have, you know, free public schools. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's not just solving his own problem, he's solving the problem for everybody's kid. And I'm a patriot. I want to fight for my country. That should be available to other people who probably think like me. So once again, he's being a good dad, I think. And so that's what, when you tell the human story, of an extraordinary man, then I think that is where everybody can kind of get down with that.
Yeah. So true. And the interesting thing is it seems like this story came out of nowhere, and we know that it didn't. It's been decades, it's been told for decades and decades. Storytelling has been how our stories have evolved and been told, and all of those things. And you just hearing and reading about his life and reading that he actually went to talk to Lincoln about Black people fighting for the Union and in the war and everything else. It's like those things are noteworthy, and you would think they would be a part of our history. You would think we would have heard of him. So it's just, I'm so amazed and thankful
Yeah.
that you
Well,
came
wait.
along
So
and you
I'll
got a
ask you a
hold
question.
of it.
Why do you think we don't hear about him? Why do you think he's not told, you know, why do you think it's news to so many people that this guy
You want my
existed?
personal
Like
opinion?
he was, yes, because I know what mine is, but yeah, that it's inspirational. It's about a man who single-handedly outsmarted the entire Confederacy.
Right.
As there are no until recently statues of him.
Hmm.
Um, he was by all markers a great man in every single way. A
You would
a
think he would be
a
mentioned
a
just as
patriot.
much as a Frederick Douglass, because
Bingo.
Frederick Douglass was instrumental in, bringing about the Emancipation Proclamation. Again, they don't talk about it like that. They don't tell you all of that. I truly
Frederick
believe,
Douglass had a kid named Robert Smalls Douglas.
wow,
That's how. That's how in the time,
this
that's
all
that's
was.
how
That's
close they were,
crazy.
and that's how important he was to Frederick Douglass.
Hmm.
So you would think like, why would Frederick Douglass name his son after somebody who's a
Who's a
nobody?
nobody?
Yeah,
I truly feel, just, because you asked my opinion, I feel like these stories have been withheld from us through history. The people who are not only the purveyors, but the writers and the tellers of history in our
yeah,
country, I
yeah.
feel have done their best to keep us from having pride and having and understanding the resilience and the heroics of our people.
Hmm.
And the more and more that we study and we tell our stories of history and just the things not only that were invented by our people, but the things that we have overcome, it makes us stronger and stronger. So to
Yeah,
keep a people feeling like you have to be humble and thankful for what has been given to you,
yeah.
instead of knowing that, no, we took this, we took our freedom, we took these things, and we were heroic enough to do it, and we did it scared, and we didn't give up. I think
Hmm.
telling those stories is so much more powerful to who we are and who we're becoming than the stories that some of us and our families and our parents grew up with. So I
Right.
mean, that would be my opinion.
See, that's how I feel about it. I mean, that even here today at this, as we sit there in 2026, they try to erase Joe Lewis's military history, you know, and
It's
uh,
crazy.
people, luckily people found it and put it back in. There's zero chance that this book will sell in Florida. And we just have, I mean, this book, it was, you know, story not told very often, but it was embargoed in San Diego for 2 months. It just
Wow.
sat on the dock. It just, books sat on the dock and rotted for 2 months because somebody deputized themselves to not let this story get out. And we had to petition, and we had to, fortunately, the publisher reprinted the books,
Hmm.
and then we were able to get them. But that's why, like, if you ordered it when it came out, you had to pre-order it because we were just waiting for the embargo to be lifted. Well, who embargoes pieces of paper? So
Literature.
unless you think it has the power of a weapon, you
Yeah.
know, and
Knowledge is power, and
knowledge is power.
the
Yeah,
prouder that we are of who we come from and the things that we've done to contribute to the American story, the more powerful we are moving forward. Like, if you know your story and you know your history, no one can tell you otherwise. And
right.
so, of course, that's just
Yeah,
something that is, being done purposely.
yeah.
Um,
If a kid can look at if a kid can say, "Well, I got a B- on my math test, but look what Robert Smalls went through," you
Yeah.
know, like you know.
Yeah. And telling a story like this comes with so much responsibility. And I know you
Mhm.
worked with scholars and with, like you told me, Robert Small's great great grandson. What did those conversations reveal that traditional history just doesn't always capture? I know you said he went back and forth, to his grandmother,
Yeah.
verifying things and, making sure that the story was being told accurately. What can you tell us about that process just a little bit more?
Oh yeah. Well, it was interesting because there were all these little. I tend to be pretty thorough as a writer, and I mean, a lot of that comes from I did a lot of time at Disney. I worked on Tangled and Frozen and Wreck-It Ralph, and between Treasure Planet and Frog, and I did. I think I counted something like 12 movies that I worked on for them, and
Wow.
every one of them is like a you do a lot of research, and you're always asking those very human questions: why this, why now? And so there were just little things like um the crippling thing becomes that you uh slaves did not were all illiterate. None of them wrote their own stories. So it's not like when you see battle stories about the world wars and people are writing letters to their wives and stuff, and
Right.
there's all these details that you can get from there about what was going on in what battles and who was eating what and who had beef with who. None of
You have
that.
to count
You
on
know,
other people to write those
yeah,
narratives.
right, exactly. And so, and there was one detail where I was like, okay, he escapes on the planter, and so we have the manifest of the soldier of the slaves that were working on the planter. That's the ship that they commandeered.
Mm-hmm.
And we know the white crew, Sam Hancock, Sam Pitcher, and Captain Relier, and so there's that. And then on the other side, there is the Union's docking of who was on the boat when they got off the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And so two things were strange to me. One was there was a crew member who was not listed in the people that surrendered themselves to the Union,
Okay.
and there's a new name of somebody who was not on the crew manifest who shows up. And so I said, "Oh, there must have been a crew member. There must have been that dude that they
Uh-huh.
just said, just leave him home. You know, he's gonna he's gonna tell somebody he's a little bit too into being a slave or
He's
whatever.
a little too
He's
eager.
we all know that guy, right? And that's probably it. And then the extra name, he's listed as a fisherman. And so he said, well, that's probably my take was he was the guy who ferried the families to the boat, and then when he figured out what they were doing, he's like, I'm coming with,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm staying back here and all this stuff.
Right.
So figure out how you're going to work that out, but I'm coming with y'all. So so that was a key part, and like, okay, that made perfect sense. Second part was that there was I said, where's the mom, where's
Yeah.
his mom? And uh and i i couldn't for the life of me find her anywhere. There were censuses taken almost every year at that time, so there was a census of her and Robert and the McKee family and everybody in Beaufort, as the Confederacy was kind of taking over Beaufort and whatever the day
Okay.
before. There's that manifest, and then she doesn't show up on the Union side,
Okay.
and she doesn't show up. The McKee family, when they fled the city, there was
Mm-hmm.
another manifest that included all the servants and everything, and she's missing.
Okay.
And so I called up Michael Bulwer Moore, and I said, where's the mom? you know,
Yeah.
and he said, what do you mean, where's mom? I said, here's what I know. Here's all
Yeah.
the places I know she's not. Where is she? And he said, oh my God. And he ran up the flagpole and said, oh my God, in 150 years, nobody's asked that question.
Wow.
And I said, here's what I think. I think that she, and this will be in the movie, but not in the books yet, but that I think that she, when the McKees were leaving, I think she stayed with the house. I think she found a way to, in the confusion, to hide herself momentarily, whether she was helped or not. And she's found the next time she shows up is in the census when Robert Smalls moves back when he buys the house on Prince Street, when he buys 511 Prince Street. She's there. She's there in that manifest. So, like, okay, well, we know where she is now after
Mm-hmm.
the war. And there's this thing called the Port Royal Project, I think, and it was a project to once they had swept the Beaufort of all the slave owners and everything, they offered medical assistance and they taught people how to read. And I said, okay, you know, prove me wrong, but I think that she was there in Beaufort and dealing with the Port Royal people who were giving food and all kinds of stuff, and she sees a newspaper and it says local hero returns home, and I said I
Wow.
think that those and I wrote a scene where those are the first words. She sees that and she says, teach me how to read this, and that's what that is. And so when he comes home, there they are, they're reunited, and she continues to live in the house until she dies. So and so I get this really great human story out of it. And I told Michael Booher what I was doing. And he says, that's probably what happened. My entire family is crying right now. And and nobody, he said, like, I've been doing this, nobody has asked this question. And he said, you probably know more about my great great grandfather's life than any other historian right now. And I'm just a writer. I just type all day, but
But
I'm
you did
asking the
the
right
work.
questions.
You've done the
Yeah,
work.
I'm
So
asking the
I
right
mean,
questions. Yeah,
it's a powerful story, and the fact that you're giving them that power and giving them just that resolve, that comfort
yeah,
of peeling back the layers and doing the research is huge. And especially in a moment like we're in today, it's absolutely huge.
yeah,
I saw something about you working to get these books in schools. How has that been, or
yes.
has that, like, I mean, I'm here in California. I know it's probably one of the easier states to get them in, but has there
Hmm.
been challenges with that?
Well, I'm going to South Carolina for the Pat Conway Festival in early March, and I'm taking a bunch of books, and I'm going to talk there. I'm doing a thing on the Monday that follows that. I think this, what is it? That's the 8th, 9th,
Mhm.
where I'll be talking to kids at the Robert Smalls Leadership Academy, and I'll be taking a bunch of books there. It's mandatory that they read it there. So I think that that's two states, California and South Carolina,
Uh-huh.
and then moving it through, because I do think that it's important. I think it's an easy read, so it's not like, oh, I gotta read this book about Robert Smalls. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's entertaining. Whatever. It's a Disney guy, um, uh, and that's some of it may be independent individual schools doing stuff. I'm having a conversation with finding I think finding ourselves in our history is another group that helps with curriculum around the country. I'm meeting them next week, and to talk specifically about getting it approved and recommended for schools. And I think that's and not just for me, but I just want kids to read it.
Yeah.
I just want people to be inspired by it and to see the thing. And I always sign books. I say WWRSD. What would Robert Smalls do? You know, because it's like, you think, here's a guy who started a slave and then he ascended to as high as he could possibly go. And you were talking earlier about, like, yeah, the fear. And I always say courage is not the absence of fear. You know, courage is the acceptance
Absolutely.
of fear, that you are,
Yes.
yes, you're going to be afraid. These are things, but the
Do it
worthwhile
afraid.
are worth being afraid for. And then
Yeah.
you just deal with it and go, you just press forward. People will talk about like it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up, you know,
Hmm.
and on the ninth time that you get up, you're pretty much afraid you're going to get knocked down again, you know,
Yeah.
but you just have to kind of face it. And I think that that's the Black country, is that we get knocked down, our
We just keep going.
Juneteenth and Martin Luther King Day are taken away, and we're having we're having cookouts, and it doesn't have to be public lands, or we'll just pay the
Exactly.
fee and have our cookout, and it doesn't have to be free. We're just going to celebrate ourselves because that's the most important thing to do. And also
Absolutely.
why it's important, why the what the NAACP is doing is so important, because it's us
Absolutely.
seeing ourselves. It's us doing these projects, and you think like, is anybody paying attention to this? And then you
Yeah.
get this nomination, and you're like, oh, great, and at the ceremony, people are like, oh man, I read your book. It's really truly inspiring, and I'm giving it out for Martin Luther King Day, and here we are in Black History Month, and like, yes, it is the perfect gift for that time.
Yeah, it is. And you've written for Marvel, you've written for Disney. Now you're elevating a real life Black American hero. How
Yeah.
does this book, how does Defiant expand the conversation around whose stories get funded, get produced, and remembered? Because I know that's a process all in of itself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting to see like what Ryan Coogler is doing, what so many people are doing, which is to say, our stories are worth telling, and if you
Yeah,
tell them well, if you build it, they will come. If you tell our stories well, there's an audience for it. People will go, and
absolutely.
which has not always been the thing. It's always been a Hollywood thing of like, don't tell this story. Let's tell more of these stories. Does he
Hmm.
crash any cars, or whatever? Did he take out the gun? Is he a drug dealer or a pimp? And
Right. That's
and those
they're
things you can
like
sell,
green lighting that. Like, let's do it.
yeah, every day, every day. But if you say like, oh, he's a hero, and he was a brave guy, did amazing things, met Lincoln, and was the most famous black man on earth, and P.T. Barnum had him doing speeches, and they're like, boring. So you have to prove that it's not boring. You have to prove that it works. The Kickstarter campaign helped that. Like I said, I'm so glad that Legion M is behind this. I think it's the one of the few places where you can tell a story like this, and not get encumbered by people saying like, who are you going to upset? As you tell it,
Yeah, I
and
love their platform because it's,
yeah,
it's funded by, by private people. So
folks, yeah,
that just makes it a easier, you don't have to sell it. I'm, you know,
yeah,
hoping and praying as hard as you would if you're going to, the other people.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and so that and I think we're at a time when our stories are being killed at such a fast rate that
Hmm.
my thing is we have to make three for every one they burn.
That's crazy.
We have to there has to be fresh supply, so that people start saying like, oh well, wait, these things are working, why don't we, like people who read my book are getting curious about some of the other books about Robert Smalls, and
Yeah. I
they're
mean,
digging into it.
I read this story and I'm like, wait, who else was doing this? Like, who
Right.
else in our history have we never even heard about who was a part of this and a part of this story, or forging their own story, but we just haven't heard, but they're part of the bigger picture. So it
There's so
really,
many stories that I cannot tell in this because I'm focusing on Robert Smalls, but
right.
at every turn I'm like, you know,
There's space for more though, is
there's
the
space
is
for
the
more.
is
Yeah,
the
but
wonderful news. It's like, let's
Harriet
focus on
Tubman,
this. And
Harriet
then,
Tubman was a spy and a general,
yeah.
for
And a
for
lot
the
of people
Union.
don't know that. They just think,
People
oh,
don't
she was
know.
freeing people.
Yeah, she was just running through the forest, having
Right.
hallucinations and whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. after the war, she petitioned and got instated as a general.
Mm-hmm.
That she was, you know, working with soldiers to free slaves during the Civil War. Know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And the other people who were in Congress with Robert Small, all
Yeah.
stories, many of them
Plenty
illiterate,
of stories.
and
Yeah.
who ran, some not, some. There was a one story, I can't, maybe I'll do it after this, but there's this guy who was basically raised in England, who came back to Beaufort and ran for Congress and won. And here's a black guy who was with an English
Removed
accent,
from
who worked
removed from
as
America and then came back.
yeah, went, I believe, to Eton, and I don't know if he got his jurisprudence at Cambridge or Oxford, but he's, you know that's a story. you
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
uh,
There's
and
so
and
many.
had so many, so many, and especially when you look at, like, you know yeah, what happened to Michael B. Jordan and at the Baptist,
Delroy Lindo.
and
Oh my
and
gosh.
Delroy Lindo, and how that event could have happened in the 1860s. No,
Right.
and nobody would think twice about it. And
Hmm.
the fact that we are so united, the tiny black community in London and the massive black community in the United States, and it's like, you can, I don't know what y'all have been doing, but we don't get treated like this. This is
Right.
not a this is not a thing. So,
Yeah, and I
we're
saw a
this is gonna be
creator and she said, I'm so happy that she's like, because we don't have the force that the
right,
American black community have here.
right.
And so she was so proud to see everybody come together to speak up against this. And so, I mean,
We
it's
don't
so
know our power.
important.
We don't
Yeah.
know our power,
No.
and
And that's
we
why
need
they
to be
don't want our
reminded of
stories
it.
told.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's just
1000%.
exactly why. Let me ask you this before we close. Because you've gone from princesses breaking barriers to superheroes navigating the identity of Robert Smalls. You seem drawn to stories of people who defy the odds, and I'm assuming that's intentional.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, very much so. That it's it, I get offered those other things. Like,
Yeah.
I could be writing, those, and probably, living in a bigger house. But the for me, when I started doing this, my dad's a doctor, my mom's a teacher, and they were like, if you're gonna do this, know that words have power,
Mm-hmm.
and tell those stories, tell the right stories. That we have in the black community a tradition of griots. We tell stories for reasons.
Yeah.
Some of the hip hop that I liked the most in the beginning was empowering raps. Flavor Flav wasn't just a guy with a clock. He was a dude,
Right.
that was empowering people,
It's
and
like they made
and
a
all of those.
caricature of him, but he was so
Yeah,
much bigger than what they try to
so
show.
much bigger. And you
Mm-hmm.
memorize that stuff. It sits in the back of your brain, and it's like, yes, absolutely, I can do these things. And so that was a big part of it. It was like, okay, good. Can I, Sidney Poitier was much like that, where he would pick projects that only, he turned down a bunch of stuff, but he would pick projects that elevated
That meant
the
something.
discourse. Yeah. And so for me, I said, if I ever get the chance to choose, that's what I'll choose. So, Prague, yes, let's do that. That Captain America: Brave New World being is about not being seen as good,
Yeah.
and that is the thing, that he with no superpower has one thing, which is his heart and the
Yeah.
power of that he is, but he's constantly proving that he's as good as, if not better than, Steve Rogers. And that's not just flying superheroes. That's everyone. That's everybody
Yeah.
who steps into an office and has to be, and is labeled a DEI hire, or who works at CBS News and gets fired for no
Right.
reason. You know
My
that
goodness.
that that's us. That's our story. And you tell it in mythology, but you're telling a human story with all the fun of flying through the air and Red Hulks and
Right.
and stuff. But ripped of his shield breaks and his wings are taken off and he is David. It's David and Goliath.
Right.
Do I have the heart to defeat this thing that could touch me and kill me? And I think that's not just Sam Wilson. That's everybody every day,
Yeah.
at a Waffle House, so so and hopefully we start seeing ourselves that way. I think there's a big difference in that we are better. Our fear, what was it in the debate movie, that our fear is not that we are not as good as we think we are. Our fear is that we are more powerful than we believe
Then we
ourselves
think
to
you
be.
are. Yep.
And that is a fear that we need to face, and that we need to, what more can we do? What better stories can we tell? What things can we achieve that no one else has? And so as long as I'm around, as long as people let me tell stories, I'm gonna keep trying to elevate the Black voice.
I love it, and we need you, and we appreciate you. Before we wrap it up, and I just want to bring it back to legacy because that's really what this conversation has been about. If
Yeah.
Robert Smalls could see this moment, the nomination from the NAACP, the development of what's to come and what's already been created, this conversation, what do you think he would say?
Well, I think he's absolutely watching me every day. I think he's watching, looking down on all this. There's times when I'm like, oh, okay, that happened because of him. I think he would. I think he, like the way he lived. I think he would just say, keep going.
Yeah,
That face the fear, face the challenge, that there
he
is
would
so
be
much
so
more on
proud.
the other side. Yeah.
I
And
think he would be
pride.
so proud of, of his story being told, of him now being, there's a monument now in South Carolina. I think that that would definitely be a full circle moment
Yeah.
for him, for such a time as this. I think
Yeah.
it would
That's the
definitely.
dream. That's the dream,
Mhm,
is that is
absolutely.
that is to make something that both he and his family can be proud of, and put him up on that, Mount Rushmore of, that maybe when February comes around, the one time people talk about Black history, that they that they include the name of Robert Smalls in that,
Look, I mean, I know we all talk about it
between.
in our homes
Oh, good.
daily, and it's not just relegated to a month, even though that's what America recognizes. But
Yeah.
we
I
have to
always say
keep
I'm
telling
black
these
all year.
stories
I'm black all year. So,
all year, 365. For everyone watching this live, where can they find Defiant? I got my copy on Amazon,
okay.
but how can they find a copy? I'm assuming anywhere books are sold. I did
Anywhere.
include the
Yeah.
link here so people can scan it and
Oh, good.
participate in getting this book. And how can they be a part of bringing the film to life that you guys are creating?
Well, two things. One is, yeah, you can go to Amazon. I always tell people, you can get it at Stranger Comics. Those guys are
Okay.
fantastic. Sebastian Jones and has built a great Black independent comic book company, and obviously they do just great work. All the
I'll
artists that
have
came
to look
over
him up. It's called
from Black
Stranger
Panther.
Comics.
Stranger Comics. They
Stranger
published,
Comics. I love that. I'm gonna look that up.
and and look at everything they have some new projects coming out now that are just astounding. People are catching on to the stories that they're telling.
Okay.
I would look at Amazon, because I want the numbers. I want us to stay up in the bestseller
Yeah.
ranks, and that's great. You can also follow me at I am Rob Edwards on Instagram, and actually on all platforms. That
Okay.
I am Rob Edwards, and I'm going to be continuing to tell the story of how we're getting the movie made. There's some
I
partners
love
that have
it.
come in that are helping us with the pre-production and development.
Okay.
And as more pieces come in, there's some stuff that I can talk about, some stuff I can't talk about yet that
Of
is
course.
fantastic. What's great about a project like this, once again, the spirit of Robert Smalls looking over us, is that everybody says yes. Everybody that we've asked, like, hey, think about, would you mind doing something for this? Like, yes, when can I, what do you need? When can I start?
Oh, I
So,
love that.
so that's been the spirit of it. And, a lot of actors have just kind of cold called, like, I know you're making a movie, whatever,
Oh, I
consider
love
me.
it.
So that's great, and, yeah, we're getting a lot of love. And after this conversation, I will go back to writing the screenplay.
All
And
right.
it will soon be finished, and it's glorious. It's really, I'm super proud of it. And yeah, but follow me at I am Rob Edwards, and follow the at Defiant Project, also on Instagram. And buy the book for, you know it's the world's greatest gift. And
Get the book,
now you can,
everybody. It's
yeah,
a great book. It's great for kids. It's great for families. It's great for anybody. And
yeah,
definitely follow Rob Edwards on all the places you can follow him.
all the places. Yes,
Rob, thank you for this conversation, and
thank you,
thank you for
Myiesha.
telling stories that expand how we see ourselves in our history. To everyone watching, the links are in the description. Make sure to grab a copy of Defiant, support the film as it gets ready to, when it comes out, and subscribe to not only this channel, subscribe to Rob's channels and turn on your notifications. And share this stream, because stories like this deserve to travel. And this has been Media with Myiesha, and I will see you guys in the next conversation.
Please.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, this was great, wonderful.